As inflation continues to eat up Americans' paychecks, Joe Biden takes no blame for it. That's what he said this week. Yes, he just said that this week. Now, remember that $1.9 trillion spending bill? Well, that has pushed wages down nearly every month since it was signed into law, according to Economist Stephen Moore. Would you please welcome back to the show one of our favorite economists, in fact, one of the few that make any sense, Stephen Moore.
Well, you just wanted me on the show because I love the fair tax.
Well, that's true, but you're a smart guy, and that's why you love the fair tax. Look, I know politically it's going to be a hard sell and a heavy lift.
You know why? Because nobody in Washington wants to get rid of the income tax.
They don't.
That's how everybody makes their money. If you want to drain the swamp, get rid of the IRS tax code, right? Like, just burn it up. Let's have a big bonfire and burn it up.
But, Stephen, you'll be able...
Look, this is important. The congressmen buy and sell favors with the tax code. That's what Joe Biden does. That's what members of both parties are doing.
Republicans do it, too.
And that's why they don't want to get rid of it. So what you're doing is trying to create this kind of populist revolt around the country against something. By the way, we wouldn't have to hire 87,000 new IRS agents if we had your system.
You know, and you understand better than most people because you were there when a lot of these economists were first, and they were very smart people, and they weren't charged with finding a way to get more money for the government, just get what we have to operate as we're operating. But paying at consumption does make a huge difference because, as you just pointed out, Congress can no longer say, hey, you gave to my campaign, I'm going to get you a nice little carve out in the tax code so your company doesn't have to pay as much as your competitor. People don't understand. That's how Washington works.
That's right. Now we have a tax code that is over 80,000 pages long when you include the legalese.
Yeah.
Most people can't understand it. The people at the IRS can't understand it. If you call the helpline at the IRS, they're not going to provide you any help if you can get through to them. I've talked to IRS agents, by the way, who say, I love the fair tax, because they don't even understand it. So let me make another point, though, that I think is really important for America. Can you imagine what this would do to our economy, Mike? I mean, we would beat the pants off the Chinese if we didn't have any income tax. Russia, all these other countries would look at, you would have money flowing into the country. Factories would be built in the United States. They wouldn't be going to Mexico and these other countries. We would become a magnet. We would be the high-growth country in the world.
But we have just, in the recent few years, done some things to really raise taxes. The so-called infrastructure bill and then the investment bill that the president is signing, Congress passed, you have said that really has caused the cost of everything to go up. How does it go up because of that bill?
Listen, this is the most financially reckless president we've ever had in history, and I don't say that with any joy. I mean, his performance, and by the way, in his State of the Union speech, he talked about how great the economy was, and I'm scratching my head, what country is he talking about? I mean, really? I mean, you look at what's happened, and look, I worked for Donald Trump. As you know, I was one of his economic advisors. Trump was a great president, right? What he did for our country, what he did for our economy. And to see in 2 years how Biden has just allowed that to go in the trash bin. We had 1.4% inflation the month. Did you know that? 1.4% inflation the month Trump left office. It went up to 9% under Biden. And then he has the gall to say, oh, I inherited an inflation crisis. No, he didn't. Just like he says, I inherited a bad economy. We're coming out of COVID. I mean, Governor, I'm so frustrated because the economy should be booming today, and it's not. And you know who's getting hurt the most? The middle-income people are getting crushed by this inflation. Wages gone up 5%, inflation's gone up 8%. Do the math there. That means every month that Biden has been president, middle-class Americans are getting poor.
You know, I don't think a lot of people fully grasp that. Energy prices are up dramatically because we've essentially said, we're going to cease energy production of our own domestic energy sources, and we're going to bring it in from somewhere else. That is a gut punch to the typical American family, as well as to the typical American factory. I don't understand this.
The jobs we're losing. Think of the fact we wouldn't have a trade deficit if we could produce all this oil and gas and coal. I mean, you're into all American energy. Donald Trump was into this. There's no reason we would have to import a single teaspoon of oil from the rest of the world. And by the way, the other thing, you know this, what Joe Biden did because he wouldn't produce the oil here, we had to deplete our strategic reserve. So now we don't have reserves. I mean, this is criminally negligent that you would, you know, if people always ask, how many of you think this is intentional? You think this is intentional? I mean, if you wanted to destroy a country, you destroy its energy supply. And unfortunately, that's what Joe Biden has done.
Now, we've got the big debate going on in Washington over the debt ceiling. And there are some people saying, you know, we don't want to continue just to raise the credit limit until we've had a little conversation about stopping so much runaway spending. I've heard some of the people, including the White House press secretary, say it is the duty of Congress to raise the debt ceiling. And I was scratching my head and said, I don't remember reading that in the Constitution.
Yeah. Well, let me make this really simple, because I feel very strongly that this is the one opportunity we have to get this debt under control. When I came to Washington in 1985 or so, the debt was $1.5 trillion. It's $31.5 trillion today. Think about that. From $1.5 trillion to $31.5 trillion in 30 years. Yeah. We just add to it year after year after year. And by the way, Republicans and Democrats are responsible for it, okay?
Can't blame Democrats alone for that, exactly.
But Biden comes in, he spends $4.5 trillion his first 2 years in office. We have got to stop this debt right now, right? We've got to stop.
Let's hope.
It's a cancer.
Do you think the Republicans will have the courage to say, that's it, we're not going to keep just raising the debt limit?
You know, this is how Newt Gingrich got a deal. Remember, the only time we balanced the budget in the last 35 years was when Bill Clinton was a president, a Democrat, because we negotiated a deal, we brought spending down, we got to grow the economy. None of those are happening right now. So I'm totally with Kevin McCarthy on this. This is our rock of Gibraltar. We cannot blink on this. We cannot flinch. We have to make a pact as Republicans that we are going to act for fiscal responsibility. This is a great country. We have so much opportunity in this nation. I really believe the thing that worries me most, though, is out of control government and out of control debt that nobody wants to do anything about. It's a
Let's
cancer.
hope that the leaders of Congress are listening to you, Stephen Moore, because I certainly am, and I always have.
Go fair.
You're
now,
one of the
I like
best.
the flat tax, but I like the fair tax even better. Okay.
Me too. Stephen Moore, and let me just say to our audience, if you want to keep up with Stephen Moore on social media, as always, we've got the links to do that at Huckabee.tv, and you will want to. As I say, he's one of the few economists I've ever known who makes sense, and he understands, and he can communicate it. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.